Uh, Good evening, everyone. My office bearers, the convener, the technical support from Sejal, and of course today's speaker Sujata Madam, and all the members present here. Very need of the our topic, but a very tricky topic. I'm specially I have to thank Sujata Madam for accepting our last minute invitation. Uh, we are really thankful to you, madam, uh, uh, for accepting our invitation at the last minute. There were a few technical issues, uh, and we were stuck. And you came and literally you bailed us out from this. So thank you for that. I have a few announcements. All those members who have not renewed their membership may renew at the earliest. Secondly, all the life members who have still not paid their review subscription charges may also pay. We have already started posting review physically, and everyone is receiving now. Uh, One more point, referencers are available in Mazgaon Tower office. So all those who have booked it may kindly collect it from the Mazgaon Tower office. Uh, Thank you very much. Now I would not waste much time, and I request Joint Convener Parth Vadeka to formally introduce Sujata Madam.
Good evening, friends. Well, this is indeed a pleasure for me to be introducing someone who is a doyen of our sales tax practice and a senior and a mentor to all of us, Mrs. Sujata Rangnekar. She's a BCom FCA LLB. She's practicing in sales tax since 1988. She's been the president of STPAM, now GSTPAM, 2000. She's the practitioner. She was the president of Sales Tax Tribunal Bar Association from 2002 up to 2004. She has addressed various seminars, workshops over Maharashtra on sales tax before several professional bodies like STBA, STPM, WIRC, etc. She has also addressed several non-professional bodies such as Rotary Club, College of Commerce, etc. Over and above that, she is a regular column writer and contributor to leading journal on sales tax, which is Sales Tax Review. She has contributed several papers in sales tax in various seminars. She has co-authored a publication of the ICAI on Central Sales Tax Act. She has also been the editor Sales Tax Review, being a mouthpiece of STPM, now GSTPM, from 2014-15 onwards up to 2016-17. In her regular practice, she consults several corporate clients too. With that brief introduction, I would like to welcome Sujata Madam to this fifth study circle. This topic, 36(4) and reconciliation issues arising thereof, is extremely important because 36(4), which has gone through several changes, now from March to September, the entire reconciliation now falls when you file the returns for the month of September, which will be in October. So that is why this is the most timely topic, and we could not have a better speaker than Sujata Madam. I welcome you, Sujata Madam, and I propose I request everyone to give her a round of applause. Yes, Madam, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Parth, for so kind words. GSTPM has always been a parent organization which has given a platform to us in the initial years, and we can never forget that. So there is a gratefulness to this association, and anything I can do for this association, definitely come forward and do. So that's not a question, or that's not an obligation at all. So anyway, thank you much for inviting me for this particular topic, which is of very much practical importance. Now, because of the shortage of time, whatever I have understood, I mean, after reading the rule as well as considering the provisions of the Act, I will express my views before you. there could be some differences of opinion between you and me, but then I think the association allows the expression of thoughts, expression of I mean, the freedom of expression is always there. So let me start with the topic given to me, that is 36(4) rule, and the notification which has given or which has suspended the rule for the months from February till August 2020 due to COVID-19, and the application of the rule thereafter again in the month of September. So this has caused lot of anxieties among the dealers, like how to go about it and how to comply with the law. Now, I'm sure all of you are quite aware, like what is 36(4) rule. But just to recap, I would like to, refresh all your memories, and because see, for all these last few months, we have not been applying this rule, and therefore there could be some kind of, you might have forgotten certain things, and I would like to refresh your memories to that extent. Now, this 36(4) rule was introduced by notification number 49 of 2019 dated 9th October 19. This rule read as under: input tax credit to be availed by a registered person in respect of invoices or debit notes, the details of which have not been uploaded by the suppliers under subsection 1 of section 37 shall not exceed 10% of the eligible credit available in respect of invoices or debit notes, and details of which have been uploaded by the suppliers under subsection 1 of section 37. Now, it's not that simple as it looks like. The percentage, which has then after reduced to 10% from 1st of January 2020, is to be applied on the eligible credit, that is the matched credit. Normally, it could have been on the unmatched credit, as the common sense suggests. But here the rule says whatever has been allowed to you as a matched credit, you will be getting 10% additional credit of such matched credit. That's the rule, prescribes. Now, this has created many problems over a period of time. Now, this particular rule came from 9th October 19. And there was one circular 123/42/2019 GST that has, stated that the rule will be applicable for the periods from October onwards. So the controversy that whether this rule is a substantial rule or a procedural rule, and whether the periods prior to 9/10/19 also will be covered, where the returns are to be filed after 9/10/19, or the periods prospectively will be covered, that is after 9/10/19. But the circular has said that it will be applicable from October, which is of course a favorable view, so we should accept it. So October, November, December are the 3 months where this margin was 20%, and for the month of January it is 10%, and from February till August 20, some part of it falling into the financial year 1920, that is February and March, and from April to August it falls in the next financial year 2021. The rule is suspended for this period, and then again in September the return which has to be filed by 20th of October, but GSTR 1 will have to filed on 11th of October. Now here we have to make all the adjustments which we were not required to make for all these months all together at once. So this is the challenge before us. I think this also could be one of the reasons, Raj, for asking for the extension, because this is a huge exercise, and everybody has to do it. Hello, Raj, are you here?
Madam, the extension, madam, what has happened is we have actually asked for this representative extension
Ah,
of 36 to
ah,
4, and we
ah,
are also hoping that in the GST Council meeting something comes out. But seeing the
ah.
agenda of GST Council meeting doesn't seem like that. All of those requests have already been made, but it so happens that it seems that right now they are quite obstinate. So nothing really extension wise, we are not really sure, but we have already made an extension and we are going to make another plea for an extension for all these issues. This is already
Okay, so
gone
they
for
are not
36-4, man.
in a receptive frame of mind, right?
Not at all, man. Not at all, man.
Yeah. Huh. So this is what, I mean, the rule came. Then after, the questions came whether this rule is constitutional, whether it is falling into the because it is part of the rules. Rules are normally the machinery provisions which give an effect to the sections or the provisions in the sections of the act. But here the rule is trying to or seeking to levy a certain burden on the dealers or registered persons. So whether it could be still called as just a procedural matter, or whether this is substantial and can be declared as unconstitutional, that is also a point. Now we are not really going into this constitutionality much, but I would just like to mention few of the reasons. If somebody files a writ against this, I think some people have filed, but so far no outcome is there, and we cannot say that the rule has been declared as void. So presuming that the rule will stay there and we will have to follow it as it is, we have to proceed further. But what were the grounds on which the rule could be called as unconstitutional? See, first of all, we need to understand, see the rule, how it works. Supposing in the month of October, I'll give you one very simple example. I think that would have been better with the PPT, but I am not able to do that. But I'll just verbally explain one example. The total ITC for the month of October is say 1000. There are 4 bills, 2 of them match, amounting to rupees 500. So I have taken 500 as the ITC which is matched with the 2A, which I have, which is auto populated, and 500 is matched. So remaining 2 invoices which are having ITC 200 and 300 respectively, they are not shown in the 2A as so far. Now in the subsequent month, when I see the 2A, I see that the next invoice of 200 is matched. Earlier, when 500 was matched, I am allowed to take 20%, because this is month of October, 20% more than what is actually matched. So 500 plus 100 rupees I will take. So total ITC will be 600. Now in the subsequent month, when I see that 200 has been matched, I am allowed to take 100% of that 200 also. 20% of that 200 also. So it will be 40 rupees. So first 500, then 200, totaling 700, and 20% of that, that is nearly 140. That will be added to my total ITC which is claimed. Now out of the last one, 300, there is only 160 which is remaining. So when supposing that 300 invoice is shown in the subsequent months in the respective 2A, then I am not able to take the entire 300, but I'll have to take only the balance, because my total claim as per the return cannot exceed the ITC as per my invoices which have been booked by me. This is the, basic principle that we have to follow. That whatever ITC as per your books of account which you have claimed based on your invoices, etc., that cannot be exceeded just because you have been given the chance to add up 20%, 10% as the case may be. But for this matter, you will always have to keep a proper track of how many invoices are matched, which are the remaining ones, and whether I'm exceeding the total claim or not. So month on basis, I'll have to keep this particular track record. Otherwise, there are chances that I'll be going wrong. I'll be claiming something in excess, and then I'll have to face the penal consequences. So this is the rigor of the rule, that I have to constantly keep a check on how much I'm claiming, how much is being reconciled in the 2A. Now 2A also, as I was discussing in the morning with Aditya, 2A also has its own problems, because on a particular date, the due date of filing GSTR1 by the vendors is 11th of the succeeding month. Now on 11th, if you open up 2A, it might give you the position on 5th. I don't know whether that is happening now, that you can tell me better. It can open up the position as on 5th or 6th. Then I have to open it again, say 12, 13, 14, till I get the position as on 11th. Because the rule says, as on the date, the details of which have not been uploaded by the suppliers under subsection 37 shall not exceed 10%, which have been uploaded by the suppliers under subsection 1 of 37. So that means on the due date, whatever has been, and the circular also explains it in that way. So it should be the due date of filing GSTR1, and as on 11th, whatever position it is showing, I am supposed to match with that position on 20th. If it is not possible to have that, then I'm helpless. But then 2A also was 2A is a dynamic statement or a document. It keeps on changing. Change is constant, I can say. And therefore, one has to constantly see how many invoices are being disclosed or they are not being disclosed. Then what Aditya told me in the morning, that whenever, supposing the supplier is late in filing the GSTR1, then whenever he files the invoices or uploads his invoices, it dates back to the 2A of that particular month, and that the 2A of that particular month is updated. So you have to constantly see right from the beginning, inception, how many changes are happening in 2A and whether these invoices are being disclosed or not. So this is an additional hurdle we have. Now, then after in January, now I was coming to what are the constitutional challenges against this particular rule. For that matter, we have to understand the scheme of the Act. Earlier, based on our inward register, inward supplies register, that is, we normally call it purchase register, we used to claim the ITC based on the invoices received by us, and where the conditions of section 16(2) are complied with, we were claiming the ITC based on those invoices. So there was no question of matching it with the 2A or whether the supplier has uploaded his invoice or not. I was not supposed to see at that point of time. I was able to claim that ITC on the basis of the invoices I had. Now this matching concept has come. Actually, matching concept was there under the provisions of the Act, which are contained in section 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. Then after they have added this 43A, which is yet to be put in force, and rules from 5960 till I think 80. Now all these rules along with the provisions have prescribed a matching concept, but it is a properly codified law, and in a particular manner you were supposed to match the invoices, the outward supplies of a supplier with the inward supply of the recipient. And there was a codified way of matching this outward and inward supplies. And you were supposed to go only in that fashion. Unless and until it is finally matched, it was taken on a provisional basis. You are entitled to utilize it. But if at all there is something wrong with or it is not matched subsequently, then you are supposed to reverse it. And there is a proper procedure provided in the Act for that. Now, Rule 36(4) brings in a concept where you are supposed to match it and take certain ITC on an ad hoc basis, 20%, 10% as the case may be. That was never the concept under the earlier, the basic provisions of the Act, which are contained in section 37, 38, 39, etc. So when it is going contrary or diagonally opposite to the objectives of the main Act itself, whether it can be challenged on that basis or not. That's the first question. Because if you look at section 38, which says that, I will just read out subsection 2, which will make it very clear. Every registered person other than input vagara vagara, including inward supplies of goods, services, or both, on which the tax is payable on reverse charge basis under this Act, and inward supplies of goods or services or both, taxable under the integrated goods and services on which integrated goods is paid under, sorry, the credit or debit notes. 1 minute. Yeah, furnishing of. Yeah, sorry, subsection 1. Every registered person other than all those 4 categories shall verify, validate, modify, or delete if required the details relating to outward supplies and credit or debit notes communicated under subsection 1 of section 37 to prepare the details of his inward supplies and credit or debit notes, and may include therein the details of inward supplies and credit or debit notes received by him in respect of such supplies that have not been declared by the supplier under subsection 1 or section 37. So what it means is the recipient is able to include even the invoices, debit notes, which have not been disclosed by his supplier while filing his GSTR 2. That is the statement of his inward supplies. So how was the scheme working or was supposed to work? It was like GSTR 1 first step. Then it will auto-populate 2A, which the recipient will receive. Then recipient will compare that with his inward supplies register, and he will prepare GSTR 2, wherein he is allowed to include even the invoices and debit notes which the supplier has not shown. Why he has been allowed? Because he has received the invoices and he has complied with the conditions under section 16(2). Therefore, he does not have to depend upon only the supplier for uploading the invoices. He can himself on his own include all those invoices and prepare his GSTR 2. Then based on that, another statement called GSTR 1A is prepared, which is given to the vendor. He has again to check it with his outward supplies, make the corrections, rectifications, etc., accept it, which will modify or amend his GSTR 1. And then finally, both of them file GSTR 3, that is the return. And again, there is a matching process which is provided in Rule 69 onwards. After he files his valid return in GSTR 3, again the matching process will start, and then the finality to the ITC. I'm not going into that process so deeply. The finality of the matching will take place after comparing these valid returns. And there were certain reports like MIS 1, etc. would be generated for pointing out the discrepancies, etc. And both of them are given the chance to rectify their inward or outward supplies. And finally, whatever transpires, that's the claim of ITC. So this is a very well thought out procedure for allowing the ITC claim of the recipient. Now, this has been given a go by this particular rule 36.4 by saying that you take only ad hoc ITC equal to 20% of your matched ITC. So this is a little deviation from the main provisions of the Act, and the rules cannot provide something which is not contemplated in the provisions of the Act. So this is the first challenge we have. Then secondly, section 16.4. Now what happens in 36.4? Supposing the supplier does not upload his invoices at all. There is a subsection 4 to section 16 which says that you have to, the last date for filing your claim of ITC will be the due date of the return for the month of September in the next financial year, or annual return, whichever is later, whichever is earlier. Now in that case, supposing by that date the supplier does not file or upload his invoice, then the result is, if you read it along with rule 36.4, I lose that credit. Actually, it is 16.4 has been has provided that the invoices which have been missed out in spite of having been received and having been accounted but have not been disclosed in your inward supplies, etc., or 3B now, you were given a chance to include them by this deadline. But what 36.4 seeks to do, it says that you will not be entitled to this claim if it is not uploaded by the supplier. Earlier, this uploading of the supplier's condition was not there. So this is also 16.4 is also causing a hardship or a deviation from the provisions of the Act. And then the foremost, I mean the you can say the surtage of this challenge would be section 43A, which is yet to get a force under the statute.
Madam, you are muted. You have to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it is clear.
Yeah. 1 minute. Huh? Yeah, section 43A was to be introduced by amendment in 2018, but the notification giving it an effect has not yet been passed. And if you read that section, it is the parent section for introducing a rule like 36.4. So this could be a very good ground, according to me, for challenging this 36.4 before the court of law. It says that 43A, procedure for furnishing return and availing input tax credit. So this particular section seeks to deviate from the provisions which we discussed just now for claiming the ITC, matching concept, etc. 1, 1A, 2A, 2, etc. But it has not come into force. But they have still introduced the rule without having the section protecting that rule. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 2 of section 16, section 37 or section 38, every registered person shall, in the returns furnished under subsection 1 of section 39, verify, validate, modify, or delete the details of supplies furnished by the suppliers. Then subsection 2 says, notwithstanding anything contained in section 41, 42, or section 43, the procedure for availing input tax credit by the recipient and verification thereof shall be such as may be prescribed. Now here this 36.4 would have been introduced under this particular subsection. The procedure for furnishing the details of outward supplies by the supplier on the common portal for the purpose of availing input tax credit by the recipient shall be such as may be prescribed. Again, the prescription is there. And then 4, the procedure for availing input tax credit in respect of outward supplies not furnished under subsection 3 shall be such as may be prescribed, and such procedure may include the maximum amount of the input tax credit which can be so availed, not exceeding 20% of the input tax credit available on the basis of details furnished by the suppliers under the said subsection. So here the 20% margin which is prescribed, it has not been put into effect, but still Rule 36(4) has been prescribed in spite of this section not being there. So these are the various grounds on which it can be challenged. So far, I don't know, the writs have not been argued or there is no outcome of those writs. But according to me, these are the good, grounds. Now, one may say that section 41 says subject to certain conditions and restrictions, the ITC will be allowed. Even that can be a section for promoting Rule 36(4). According to me, no, because the entire, provisions, if you read, it, formulates a particular scheme. Now, rules can be prescribed in sync with those provisions or that scheme. You cannot totally ignore the scheme and, prescribe something else. So, according to me, it cannot fall into section 41 also, which says that conditions and restrictions will apply as may be prescribed. So before section 43A, which could have been said to be a parent provision for introducing 36(4), they should not have done it, but now they have done it. The courts have not declared it as void, and therefore we have to live with it and accordingly apply it to the claim of ITC that we will be taking. Now, there are certain practical difficulties while putting this rule into practice. One is, as I already said, the identification of the invoices. So tax period wise, that is normally month wise, you will have to keep a proper track of the invoices which have been disclosed in 2A and which have not been disclosed in 2A, and tracking it in the further 2A. Supposing in a month you have claimed the invoice, but it has been disclosed in the 2A of previous month of the supplier, I think there is no problem in claiming that, because finally what the rule wants is it should be disclosed in 2A when you claim that particular ITC, and it is already claimed, shown in the previous month's 2A, and therefore it should be, you should be able to claim it. Then supposing there is some kind of a discrepancy in the invoice which you have booked and the invoice which is uploaded by the supplier. If your claim is less than what the supplier shows, the circular also says there is no problem, you can claim it. But supposing it is more, then what do? Are you supposed to claim only to the extent of whatever has been uploaded by the supplier? Supposing he has uploaded 100 rupees, but my invoice is 120. Can I take 120? My answer to it is yes, because all that the rule says is he is uploaded. They don't say that it has to be uploaded exact the same amount. Once it is uploaded, I become entitled to it. And if I have the invoice with me, which shows that amount of 120 properly, then I should be able to claim that. That is what I feel. Then I've already said there could be a situation where, as and when you go on claiming the ITC based on your matching with the 2A, a situation can arise where your total claim can exceed the claim as per your invoices, because you are adding that 10%, 20% over and above the matched ITC. But there you have to stop and claim only to the extent of the invoices you have. So this you have to keep in mind. Then there could be a problem of suppliers showing the invoice in B2C column, whereas I have it is in B2B. Now in this particular situation, we can ask the supplier to give a confirmation like we used to do in VAT era. I think that's the only solution we have, that he has considered this invoice with so and so details while filing his, and then he can rectify in the subsequent month. That's a different thing. But at the time of you claiming the ITC, you can have that confirmation from the supplier. Now, another great issue which is being faced by the dealers is the quarterly returns, because we have two tax periods. One is monthly and another is quarterly. Now, so far as monthly dealers are concerned, there would not be much of a problem, of course, subject to all this what we discussed. But so far as the quarterly return filer is concerned, he does not file GSTR1 for the first 2 months. He files it only for after the 3rd month. Now, if I have purchased from such dealer who files quarterly return, then I'm not able to claim that ITC because he has not uploaded his GSTR1. This is the, a great problem which the people are facing. Parth, is there any explanation on that, or are they considering this kind of a case? Parth? Hello? Aditya?
Parth is not there. Parth.
Yes, madam.
Aditya? Who's that?
Yes. Aditya here.
Yeah, Aditya, this quarterly returns, I think
Yes,
this is a
madam.
problem by everybody.
Yes.
Have we made any representations and have they come out with any solution for that?
We have made representations. They have told us that we understand your difficulty. We are trying to resolve and come up with a mechanism. They have told us this to us verbally, that we are trying to come up with a mechanism wherein because this problem is the most widespread problem and they are aware of it. We are trying to come up with a mechanism whereby the credit will not have to be delayed for 3 months. Now I think one of the steps that they are taking is that the GST Council meeting on the 5th that they are holding, one of the agendas that has been placed is, I think that is the reason they are planning on preponing the due date, because right now it is 30 days after the end of the quarter. Their one step is they're planning to prepone the due date for filing GSTR1 by quarterly filers, and they may take more steps because they have told us that we are aware of the problem. We are trying to do something to resolve that issue.
But do you feel this is a solution? Because if they are getting 30 days to file GSTR1, what is the use of curtailing that period? Because they are all small taxpayers.
This still doesn't solve the problem, because for the first 2 months, again, their customers still do not get to claim the credit for the first 2 months any which way.
Yeah.
So what they may come up with in the future is to, again, it all comes down again to claim provisional credit. But till they come up with something, this problem remains. All I can say right now is that we have made them aware. We have represented also. They have told us we are aware of this issue. We are concerned about it. We are trying to do something about it.
On the contrary, they said that we are telling that you file monthly only returns, for even for quarterly dealers. So that is what they said, that from next year they will allow the dealers to file monthly returns who are supposed to file quarterly returns. So I think that is a very wrong step.
Yeah, correct. Because see, small taxpayers, when you are considering their problem, because they may not be that may not be having the infrastructure to file it on a monthly basis, and that's why they're filing on a quarterly basis. But if they're losing the business altogether because of this provision, because people will say that why should I buy from a quarterly return wala, because I'm not getting the ITC, you know, on the for the first 2 months. So I will not buy from such people, and the business of that person is affected because of this. So I don't think this is really a right thing to do. Now some people have you know, attracted my attention to the wording of this particular rule, which says that it is uploaded. So uploaded meaning there should be liability to upload also. Liability to upload doesn't happen in case of a quarterly return, because he is not required to file it for the first 2 months. So then if he is not liable to upload and I have purchased from him, then can I claim it? And then later on when he files it, I see that it is matching with the invoices. And just because I claimed it 2 months earlier, can it be said that it is wrong on my part? That also needs, strictly speaking, I agree that if you look at the provisions of 36(4) in a very, very stricter sense, you will not be able to claim the ITC from a quarterly dealer, quarterly return filer. And that is the interpretation one sees, you know, after reading this particular rule. Now, the most awaited part of this discussion is how to reconcile this ITC, which we have claimed for 1920 and 2021 so far. And this problem has arisen due to the suspension of this rule for the months from February 20 till August 20. And we are supposed to reconcile everything in the month of September. The date of filing GSTR 1 is 11th. So the 2A, which is auto-populated on that date, which is a continuous statement. Am I right? It is a continuous statement. And we need to reconcile that with the invoices we have, and then claim our final ITC in the month of September, which is to be filed by 20th of October. Now, while dealing with this particular problem, I would like to say that there are now 2 financial years involved. One is 1920 and 2021. Now in 1920, there will be 3 parts, or rather 4 parts. One is April to September, where this rule was not applicable. It is made applicable only from October onwards. So April to September, whatever returns I have filed, I should have claimed the entire ITC based on my books of account, whatever I have accounted or booked. Those invoices I will claim while filing my returns for April to September. And there is no need to match it with the 2A. Provided I have complied with the conditions of section 16(2), I have not taken ineligible credit as per 17(5), etc., etc. I have received the goods, I have the tax invoice, etc. And I have made the payment also to the supplier. All these conditions being fulfilled by me, then hello? Sorry? So if all these conditions are fulfilled by me, then I'm entitled to the credit for these months, April to September. Now, supposing I have booked certain invoices, but they have not been claimed in those returns, then September return is the last chance I have. So you have to identify such invoices which you have forgotten or which have been missed out while claiming it in the 3B of these 6 months. You will have this last chance of claiming it in September 20. And for this, you will not have to see whether it is reflecting in the 2A or not. This is the point to be noted. You don't have to see whether it is reflecting in 2A or not, because 36(4) was not applicable for this particular period. Yeah. Nevertheless, the reconciliation with 2A may be necessary for you to find out the suppliers who have not uploaded the invoices, for the reason that finally when the assessment comes, they should not say that अरे ये supplier ने file किया ही नहीं, so you lose your ITC. So in order to follow up with the vendors and suppliers, you may reconcile. But otherwise, for claiming it in the returns, it is not necessary that you should match it up. Only thing you should take care is, for this particular period, April to September, whatever invoices have been missed out while filing your returns, September return is the last chance where you have to include it in your claim of ITC while filing your 3B. Then the next period is October to December 19, where the rule became applicable with 20% of margin. Now here, as I said, already said, month on month basis, you have to make a reconciliation with the 2A. Yeah. Here the point is, supposing for the month of October, whatever ITC claim you have to track it, how much is matched in the 2A, and then 20% over and above whatever has been matched, you are supposed to take. But the ceiling is the total ITC claim as per your invoices. So this you have to keep in mind. If there is an excess claim, there are chances where you can make an excess claim in your returns because of this 20% margin being added to it. If there is a substantial portion which has been matched, then 20% adding it into it would result into claim of excess ITC. And that excess ITC you will have to adjust while filing your September 20 return. But September 20 return will have a cumulative effect of everything. So finally, whatever is available to you after all this exercise of reconciliation, etc., you may have to make some payment in cash, or you may not have to make any payment. That's a individual calculation of each dealer. But you have to remember here that whatever excess you have claimed because of this addition of 20% over and above your matched ITC, if it exceeds your total claim, you will have to reverse that on a totality basis in the month of September 20. Similar situation will be there for January 20 as well. Only thing is the margin is changing there 10%. But there also could be chances that your total ITC claimed in the return could be more than what you're eligible for. And therefore you will have to reverse it in the month of September. Now here you should also remember that there could be certain invoices which you have not claimed or you have not booked, but they are being disclosed in 2A. So this is the chance you have even for these months. If they are being disclosed in 2A, but somehow you have not taken it, please take it in the month of September itself. Now that is on one-to-one basis. Now the question is whether in this kind of a case, supposing I had forgotten to take an ITC of 100 rupees while filing my January 20 return. Now the supplier has uploaded and I can see it in 2A. While filing September return, I can show that 100. But whether I should take it at 100 or 110, that's the point. Now that depends upon your total claim. I think rule allows you, but the total claim is the ceiling and you should follow that ceiling. Then the next point is February and March of 2019-20. Here the rule was suspended. You did not apply the rule while filing the returns, and you claimed on the basis of whatever invoices you have booked in your inward supplies register. So that total claim you have taken. Now, while filing return for September, you will have to see how many of those invoices are reflecting in 2A and how many are not so reflecting. So you are allowed to have 10% over and above what is being reflected. And that's the provisional ITC you are getting. However, if it is not reflecting, then except subject to this 10% addition, you will not be able to take that. Now the question is, the invoices which have not been, uploaded by the suppliers, even until the month of September, what is the, outcome, or what is the fate of those invoices? Now, because of Rule 36(4), they have clearly given a message that we will give you the credit only to the extent of matching with the 2A, which say 10%. They have been generous to give you 10% over and above that. Now, if it is remaining there, then because your deadline is over, September is over, then after you can't claim it. So this is going contrary to the scheme of the Act itself, 16(4), and this provision is going contrary to each other. That's what I feel. Now, supposing in February and March, you have missed out certain invoices and they are being shown in 2A, then you can claim it in the month of September also, subject to the total ceiling of the amount of ITC and subject to this 10% of addition as per Rule 36(4). Then for the financial year 2021, April to August 20, you must have filed or claimed the ITC based on your books of account, whatever invoices you have booked, correct? Now again, you will have to check it with 2A, how many of them are reflecting, how many of them are not reflecting. And to the extent they are matched, you can get 110% of that. Supposing that is not being reflected in 2A, you will not take it now because the deadline is in the next year now. This is a different financial year. So next September will be the deadline for this. So it will be an ongoing process for these months till September of next year, 21. So for this period, you can say that as and when the 2A reflects those invoices, I'll be taking the credit, 10% more of the matched ITC. Then the September return will finally give you a certain ITC available to you. You have to compare it with the total ITC available to you and which has been claimed by you. Accordingly, make the reversal, make the reductions in the ITC or claim more as the case may be. The balance amount as per the September return will have to be paid in cash. According to me, there will not be any problem of levy of interest over here because this is a totality view we are taking, and in September return they have allowed us to adjust everything. So there won't be any question of levy of interest over here under section 50. Aditya, what is the time?
Madam, it is 5 minutes to 6. Our session is till 6:30. You can continue.
6:30, yes. I think most of the points I have considered. Now, any questions you have on this particular rule or the implications thereof, we can deal with it or we can discuss it. I mean, the interaction would be better.
Okay, so we have 3 questions that have been raised till now, madam. One is, okay, fourth one has also come. So first question is that banking companies are eligible for only 50% of eligible input tax credit.
Mm.
Now that is under section 17(4) of the CGST Act.
Mm.
Now, if the matching exercises are carried out, there may be further problems with respect to eligibility of ITC to the banking companies. How to resolve the issues for banking companies?
Yeah.
So what? Yeah. Is the query clear, madam?
See, yeah. Correct.
Okay.
See, in case of a banking company, what I understand, you get only 50% of the total ITC eligible, correct? Now here,
Yes, ma'am.
the eligibility criteria has been based on the matching with the 2A, correct? Now, based on that, supposing I'll give one example. I have an ITC claim of say 1,000 rupees, correct? Out of that, 500 is matching in my 2A. I'm a banking company. 500 is matching in the 2A. Now, I'm supposed as an ordinary person or a dealer or a registered person, I will be able to take 550. I'm taking 10% as the margin, correct? 550. But being a banking company, I will have to slash it by 50%. So my criteria, my eligibility criteria is matching with the 2A. Now, once that is matched, that is my eligible ITC. And then the application of that rule 71 or whatever will apply and I will get only 50%. This is what I feel. You have any different view on this?
No, madam. I personally agree with you. My understanding is also that when 17(4) is saying 50% of eligible ITC, we will first calculate eligible ITC. Obviously, both Rule 36(4) as well as Section 17, they are very clear that it is only they are talking about eligible ITC. Whatever is ineligible, we will remove. And then nowhere in 36(4) or Section 17 does it say that 36(4) does not apply to such companies. So we will first take the entire eligible ITC appearing as per 2A as per 36(4), add 10% if the company wishes to, and only 50% will be claimed.
Correct. That's what my view is.
Correct, madam. The next question. Yeah. Okay. Parth has asked a question. What will be the status of interest on reversal, wherein due to lack of the credit, the taxpayer has to pay in cash?
No, Parth,
So I think he's
see,
asking about this cumulative application of 36(4) in September.
See, they have allowed you to have that cumulative effect in the month of September itself. Okay. So when they have allowed you to have that cumulative effect, whatever ITC is finally available to you, that will be claimed in the month of September. It may result into lesser ITC as compared to what you've already claimed, correct? Or it may add up to your eligible ITC in the month of September. Both situations can be there, correct? Now, when you claim that ITC in the September return, and as compared to your output liability, if there is a gap, then that gap will have to pay in cash. Or if it is sufficient to cover your entire output liability, then there is no question of any cash payment as such. That's why I said that there should not be any levy of interest in this particular case, because the notification has specifically allowed you to take that cumulative effect in the month of September. What do you say, Parth?
So,
Madam,
Parth here, Parth? Yeah.
Yes, I was trying to get myself unmuted. So I'm unmuted now. Madam, you had in fact clarified this, the interest should not be leviable. Basically, the point that I wanted to make here is that what he's saying is absolutely right. The discussion point that I wanted to bring out is that when you are not taking the ITC as per 36(4), you are not accepting that the ITC was claimed wrongly. Neither are you disallowing your own ITC on a self-assessment basis. At best, you are delaying it. So it cannot be wrongful availment of ITC. So even if you take claim the ITC late as per 36(4), in that case, interest liability should not apply. And I think that is the same point that, yes, that is the same point that you also made, madam. Yes.
Yes.
Because this is
I
not a
agree with
question of disallowing your ITC. I can understand if you are in contravention of 16, that the person has not paid tax, or the person has not paid, you have not filed return late as per section 39. If you are in contravention of 39, 16, then you are not eligible to claim ITC. Then if you claim late, then yes, or you claim early and then you disallow it, then interest is liable. But here, this is not a question of disallowing ITC at all. This is a question of whether you can take it now or you delay it later. So,
Yeah, I agree.
yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, madam, on this question of interest, just to clarify certain points and to throw more light on it, can we conclusively say that if at all somebody had claimed input tax credit as per books of account during the period from February to August, and now when they are applying this rule 36(4) cumulatively in the month of September, and for whatever reason certain ITC is not appearing in 2A of those previous months, and that person is now reversing that input tax credit, so long as in the month of September only, or rather I would put it this way, only if that in the month of September there is actually any cash liability payable in cash due to such reversal, shall that person be required to pay interest. If there is no liability payable in cash because of such reversal, then there need not be any interest.
See, in September month, what we are doing is we have the ITC relating to the month of September also, where you 36(4), correct? That is an independent ITC we have. Then in respect of the ITC which are claimed in excess for this entire period, that reversal will happen. And your net ITC will be the adjusted against the September ITC which you have claimed, minus the reversal of the earlier periods. Correct?
Okay.
So net ITC which goes into your credit ledger would be the net effect of this.
Okay. And as you discussed with Path, right now in any case there will not be any interest on this reversal of ITC that we are doing.
They have themselves allowed it, so where is the question of interest?
Correct. Okay. Shall we move on to the next question, madam?
Yeah.
Next question is whether it is compulsory to follow Rule 36(4) as Section 43A has not been notified. I think you have already answered this.
Yeah. See, so long as it is not being declared as void, it is not removed from the statute book or has not been read down by the court of law, one cannot say that this is not applicable and I will not follow it. You will have to face the consequences if you do that.
Madam, the tragedy of this is, I'm sorry, the tragedy of this is that, in fact, on if I'm not mistaken, 27 January 2020 is when the 36(4) challenge to Bombay High Court already went, and the matter was listed. I had personally filed a matter challenging 36(4), and the matter actually came on board. You'll not believe it. The matter actually came on board on 17th March. And the board did not reach at that point of time. So then it was like it will come next week, and then we know that next week never came. So, so that is the tragedy of 36(4) right now. So in Bombay, in Rajasthan, if I presume Rajasthan, they have issued notice to the opposite side. So with regards 36(4), so I don't think that they have suspended 36(4) even there. But I think they have issued notice to the center with regard to 36(4). So over here, I'm sure there are other people also filed, but 36(4) till it doesn't come in court, it has to be valid. And what you said,
I also endorse to this view.
Yeah, I feel very happy, madam. I feel very happy because all the challenges that we had taken, that I had taken in that, you said, you pretty much said the same thing. So I think that I have learned reasonably well from my seniors. With regards to when there is 41, 42 section talks about how to reverse, how to reclaim. How can a rule go over and above the section? That is excessive delegation.
Yes, yes. Correct. Excessive delegation of yes,
Yes.
legislation.
I think, madam,
It
the
has to be
answer to Mr.
argued in a proper
Subramanian,
way. Hmm.
answer
People
to
skeptical. Hello. People were
Yes.
little skeptical whether this particular challenge will be accepted by the court or not, because they were of the view that the legislature is supreme. They can put ITC is not your inherent right. It is a right statute. They can put as many restrictions they want. But you see, it is not an unfettered right, I feel. Right. When you are defining a particular scheme of act, you have to be within that scheme. You cannot do anything you like and आज ये लेने का कल वो लेने का. That is not the way you should legislate.
And
So
especially
that
since section
point,
16 talks about entitles you. Section 16 talks about ITC. The person is entitled to take ITC. Entitled means that there is a statutory right subject to certain conditions. We are not denying that. Nobody is
yes.
saying it is an absolute, but you cannot have a rule which goes above the section and then just.
My opinion, because we have filed the petition, whenever under the value-added tax system, GST is also value-added tax system. Input tax credit is a right, and the government can have reasonable restriction. That is how it has to be interpreted. Because if you say value-added tax, that means it automatically means I'm entitled to the credit of the tax paid every year. And GST is value-added tax system. Reasonable, now that unreasonableness we have to prove before the court.
Yeah. No, one aspect is, as you rightly said, it is unreasonableness of this that we'll have to prove with so many difficulties that we are facing.
Examples, yes.
Yeah, examples and all. And secondly, when you have defined, just because, and see, the very pertinent point is here, they have delayed the implementation of that system, that is 1A, 2, 2A, 3, etc. They have not dispensed away with it. The notification say that it is only postponed. So they have not delayed that from the provisions or the scheme of the act.
Correct.
You may do it,
Perfect.
but then contrary to such a scheme, how can you introduce a rule? That's my question.
So it is their own system which is not ready.
But they have not said that we will never bring it, we dispense away with these provisions now.
Yeah,
They have not they have just postponed it, we will do it at some other point of time.
Correct.
Any other question? Have I completed the issue, or anything, any other aspect remains to be explained?
madam,
You let me know.
there are one or two, there are 3 or 4 more questions which are relevant and which will bring out different aspects. So if with your permission, I will take those up, because some
Yeah,
of
please.
them you may already know the answer to. However, if we take them up, it will throw light on certain aspects which may have left out, or certain doubts that people may still have.
Okay.
One question is that if any ITC pertaining to February and March 2020 due to Rule 36(4) is still left to be claimed, can we claim it after the return for September 2020, considering the cumulative effect?
No, I didn't get it.
No. So
36(4) was not applicable at all. You filed
correct.
the return based on your invoices, right?
Correct. So I would like to,
Yeah,
with your permission, madam, I will answer this question. That,
please.
sir, that February and March, what we can read from this question is that if any ITC pertaining to Feb and March due to Rule 36(4) is left to be claimed, that means that person has actually applied 36(4) and not claimed any ITC that is not appearing in 2A. Can we claim it after the return for September, considering the cumulative effect? Absolutely not, because rule number 1, section 16(4) clearly states that ITC for any financial year cannot be claimed after the due date for filing of return of September after the end of the year. Point number 2, notification number 30, which has deferred Rule 36.4, has clearly stated, it has inserted a proviso to Rule 36.4, and it states that this rule will not be made applicable from February to August, and it will be cumulatively applicable at the time of filing of return of September. At the time of filing of return of September, the due date is 20th of October, and this rule very much applies here. So you cannot claim any input tax credit for February and March beyond 20th October. That is the due date as it stands today. Anything to add, madam, to this?
No, that's fine. That's what I also said.
Yes.
That once you miss the deadline, it's gone.
Correct. Now, one question which will bring out the aspect of GSTR 2B, and we talked about this in the morning also, madam, over the telephone. So this question will enable you to speak a little more about this GSTR 2B that has been newly introduced. Invoices matched as per GSTR 2B as on 11th day, which we take as eligible ITC. So whether we have to apply Rule 36.4 on the amount of ITC as shown in GSTR 2B.
See, 2B, as you said, has been introduced from July 20 onwards, correct? The first 2B came on 11th of August.
Yes.
Am I right?
12th of August.
12th of August. Okay.
Correct.
That was for the month of July. And you said
Yes.
some of people have the invoices even of the earlier period. I don't know how it is. But if the 2B is after all a part of 2A itself, they are not discontinued with 2A, correct?
Correct. Correct.
It is going to be a part of 2A itself, an extraction out of 2A. So if basically you match it with 2A, then it is as good as matching it with 2B also, na?
Correct. No, I would like to go one step further and state what GSTN has told us, that 2B is nothing but a statement taken out of GSTR 2A. The problem that people are facing, because which you have already explained it at the beginning of your talk, that they say that invoice is uploaded as on the due date of filing of GSTR 1. We can also interpret this as, because the circular also says that invoice is appearing in 2A as on the 11th of the month subsequent to the end of the month. That is the due date. Now what they are saying is that we were not able to find out which is the GSTR 2A as on 11th, because it kept on updating. They are stating that we are taking out all these invoices, all the GSTR ones filed till 11th day after the end of the month, and we are generating this 2B on 12th. So this is basically they are culling out this statement from GSTR 2A, and then they are giving it ready-made to us, that this is your ITC as is appearing in 2A as on the due date. Now those who want to claim only the ITC appearing and do not want to maintain a separate reconciliation of the 10% excess may claim the ITC appearing in 2B. Those who want to follow 36.4 to the T and say that we will take 110% of the ITC appearing in, they may take 110% of the ITC appearing as per 2B.
Okay, yes, you're right.
Yes.
See, if 2B is a statement or a document which takes into account the invoices during that month, supposing it is July, it is considering the July invoices, correct? And even afterwards also, as and when the suppliers keep on filing or uploading the invoices relating to July, this 2B gets updated accordingly. Am I right?
Well, can you repeat that, madam?
Gets updated. Hello?
Yes, madam. Could you please just repeat that last part?
No. See, for the month July 20 is the first month where 2B has been generated, correct?
Yes.
Generated for the month of July 20. Now it is generated on 12th of August, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Ideally, it takes into account all the invoices uploaded by the suppliers for the month of July 20, correct? Supposing my supplier uploads it sometime, later, September, October or whatever.
Correct.
Then that will again relate back to the 2B of July?
No.
Or it will be of that month?
It will go in that month's 2B. So for example, I will just put
Yeah.
a date to your example. You are saying that any invoice of July, the supplier does not file his GSTR1 on or before 11th of August. That is the due date for monthly filers of July. He goes
Correct.
and files that return, let's take for example, on 6th of September.
Hmm.
Now this invoice, if he files his GSTR1 on 6th of September, this invoice is going to appear in your GSTR2B for the month of September, which is generated on 12th of October, which will contain all the invoices uploaded in GSTR1s filed from 12th of August to 11th of September.
Okay. So it's a continuous document.
Correct. So what they are saying is that we will generate this GSTR 2B on 12th, and that 2B will contain all the invoices for all the GSTR ones that have been filed between the 11th of the 12th of the previous month to 11th of the current month, and 12th we'll generate, and then again next we'll generate the 2B on the 12th of the next month. And if any invoice has remained to be uploaded previously and it is uploaded in a subsequent month, it will appear in that particular GSTR 2B.
Okay. So what problem it solves is, if I have to relate or reconcile the invoices which have not been so far reflected, I can see the current 2B. Current 2B only. I need not see the entire 2A. Huh?
Yes. So now if you pursue with your supplier and he eventually uploads the GSTR1 or makes an amendment, then you will only have to see the 2B in which he actually uploads his GSTR1 and not go back to the month in which the invoice relates. My understanding is that GSTR2A will still get updated for that particular month only. So now we have both the things. They serve
Okay.
two different purposes. GSTR2B being a static statement will generate the invoices in the month in which that invoice has been uploaded or GSTR1 is filed. That 2B will contain that invoice, but 2A will go update as to the month to which the invoice actually relates.
Okay. Okay. I got your point. So 2B is basically a static statement.
Correct.
Now, it doesn't solve my problem of tracking the invoices. I have to keep a track on what invoices that I have been claiming.
It does not. No.
Now, yeah. So the invoices which have been left out, which were not reflected in my earlier 2B, I can see them now in the current 2B, whether they are there or not.
Correct.
And then accordingly claim.
So for small taxpayers who want to keep it very simple, who don't have the luxury of maintaining reconciliations outside the system, the simplest way to follow it is just claim the ITC that is appearing in your 2B, because they have given you, now we given you a ready-made statement of invoices uploaded by your suppliers as on 11th of a particular month. Now if any invoices for which you have not been able to claim ITC because it is not appearing in 2B, you follow up with your supplier. As and when it appears in your 2B, you can claim. But again, that one reconciliation everybody still has to go on maintaining as to which invoices we have taken ITC on, which invoices we have not taken ITC on.
Yes, yes. So Paila backlog, and we have to match it with this current 2B. That exercise is not gone. We have to do it still.
No, yes. And this September month is a different task altogether, as you have already discussed and guided everyone that this 2B. So I think that question that had been raised, because another question was that what about GSTR 2B? So I think this discussion that we've had right now, this also throws some light on it, that for the purposes of the reconciliation that Madam has spoken about today, GSTR 2B may not be very helpful, because it will only be helpful in the regular course once everything has been settled. Because of this non-application of 36(4), people may face problems if they try to match it with 2B. It is always better that for these 6 months they match it with 2A only. Is that correct, Madam?
Because 2A, yeah, 2A will be comprising of all your invoices right from the beginning, whereas 2B is the only portion out of it. So if you got to, reconcile it, you have to reconcile it with 2A itself, which is I think the parent statement or document.
Correct. Correct, madam.
Yeah.
There are a couple of more questions.
Yes.
I have a question on GSTR 2B. One had registered with effect from 9th of July 2020. When I downloaded 2B for July, it is showing ITC available for an invoice of June when my GST number was not there. Is it correct to show such invoices of prior period of registration by 2B in eligible ITC? Madam, do you want to answer this?
We have a provision, if I mistake not, even prior to the registration, provided they are on the, as on the date of registration, they are there with you.
Yeah, the inputs that are lying in stock, which are not more than 1 year old.
Inputs which are lying in stock, correct.
Yeah, but madam, this question, yeah, that is the legal aspect of it. The fun with this question, I think, is again there is a mismatch between the law and the system. Parth has stated that he would like to answer this. Parth, do you want to answer this question? Acha, because the answerer was okay. I will. Madam, what has happened again? If you understand the design of GSTR 2B, we spoke in the morning, and just a small because it will help people to understand how 2B is working also. Why people are seeing a lot of invoices of March or April or May in their first GSTR 2B of July. As I said, GSTR 2B of July has been generated on 12th of August 2020. It contains invoices, all those invoices for which GSTR 1s have been uploaded or filed by the suppliers from 12th of July to 11th of August. Now,
Correct.
because there was an extension of due dates, or they had stated that you need not pay any late fees for filing GSTR1 belatedly. If I'm not mistaken, quarterly also. We all know that for quarterly taxpayers, the tax period appears as March, the last month in which the GSTR1 is uploaded. So for a lot of quarterly taxpayers, the first quarter or the March quarter, the due date was 3rd of July. And people have filed them later also. So because the GSTR ones have been filed belatedly, the March invoices or the April invoices are appearing in the July GSTR 2B, because those GSTR ones have been filed after 12th of July and before 11th of August. So that does not mean, so this I am coming to this particular query, that I am seeing an invoice of June in my July GSTR 2B. Now, first and foremost, this clearly means that the supplier for a June invoice, there are two things which are very clear. He has uploaded that, or he has filed that GSTR 1 after 11th of July, that is, sorry, 12th of July, between 12th July to 11th of
11th
August. That is why it is appearing in his 2B. Secondly, the invoice which is dated June, now that person has put the GST number, because that the supplier is not aware since which date you have taken the GST registration. While uploading, he may already have your GST number on record, so he has put that GST number and uploaded that invoice as a B2B invoice. Now this should not happen, because in June your registration is not effective at all. The provision that you are referring to, madam, of inputs in lying in stock, that is sort of a transitional provision where you obtain registration, you get to claim of 1 year old stock. This is purely a system glitch, in my opinion, that because that person has filed his return belatedly, that is appearing in his 2B, the answer would be still no, you cannot claim that ITC. Yes, madam.
See, Aditya, just because it is appearing in 2B, the ITC doesn't become eligible ITC. You understand?
Correct. Yeah, that's
see, if your registration is not in force on that day, and there is no provision allowing you that ITC, then just because it is appearing in 2B, can you say that I'm eligible?
Exactly my point. The GSTR 2B also clearly states that this is only an indicative statement, and the provisions of claim of ITC are still governed by the provisions of the CGST Act only.
Yeah.
Just because something is appearing in 2A or 2B does not mean that you can claim that ITC.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, for that matter, see, section 17(5), wherever there are blocked credits, can you take them just because it is appearing in 2A? You cannot. That's the same logic to be applicable here.
Aditya,
But
there are few hands raised. We'll unmute them and then we'll take up the other questions.
Yes, yes, yes. If there are anyway only 5 minutes left, we will let people who have their questions, we'll let them ask.
Yes.
I have one query, madam.
So the president has a query.
who is that?
Raj.
President.
Yes, go
My
ahead.
query is that say an invoice of January 2020 was not reflecting in my 2A. So while filing that return, I did not claim ITC considering 36(4). Now say from February they have given a waiver that no, not required to be referred 36(4). So can I now claim it in February, that invoice, and show it in my book as it is a February invoice, that since I have received invoice today, that by the logic that I have received invoice now, and now I will book it in my books in February, and for February I don't have to match for the interim period. So what is your views on it?
See, you are supposed to take the ITC based on your books of account, and the inward supplies which you have booked for the month of January, ordinary ITC based on your inward supplies register, right? Now,
Yeah.
you're trying to take the advantage of the fact that from February onwards, there is no say the application of 36(4).
Correct.
That particular invoice, if you are trying to put it in February, I think there is any kind of a bar, under the provisions of the Act, that you can claim. In January, I have missed it in normal course. In normal course, I have missed it out in January. I can claim it in February, but then you may be landing up in a problem if it is ultimately not showing in your 2A in the month of September. So वो reverse करना पड़ेगा. हाँ. So those consequences you will have to face in any case.
Right. The problem
Because I
is
don't
that
see any time limit. It must be claimed in January itself. You can claim it even later also.
correct. So here the problem was that the seller was a quarterly dealer. So for obviously, so he would be filing his GSTR1 for January, February, March at a later date, April, or because of lockdown, he filed in August or September. So at least I could use that ITC in February by this jugaad, I would say, not a correct.
Yeah. That's true. I don't see any specific prohibition to do that.
Okay.
But then you will have to see, finally you have to see that whether it is appearing in 2A or not, and accordingly claim it. Or kuch?
Okay, should we unmute the hand raised?
Yes, there are a few questions people who have raised their hands. So if you don't
Yeah.
mind, we'll extend by 10 minutes and we'll take up those questions also.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Keshav Shettigar, Mr. Kamlesh Dalal, and Mr. Ramesh Jain. Mr. Keshav is, I think, offline. Mr. Kamlesh Dalal, you can unmute yourself. Yes. Yes, you can talk now, Mr. Kamlesh. Mr. Kamlesh, you are unmuted.
Mr. Kamlesh, you can talk.
Ramesh Jain, I think we'll unmute him. We'll mute him again because I think there's some background noise. Mr. Ramesh. Yes. Yes, Mr. Ramesh
Yeah,
Jain.
I'm his daughter speaking.
Yeah,
I have a
okay.
query. Supposingly, at times what happens, these are small, my clients of mine who are not very big, and they forget to enter the purchase, and the opposite part, the supplier is also on a quarterly basis. So what will happen in this scenario? Because he and maybe that person also in quarterly basis files the returns post, so can we claim it in the month in which it comes?
Yeah, I've already
Or how do
answered
we
this.
do
See,
it? Like,
supposing
because I mean, ITC is my right to.
I forgot your name, whatever. See, I've already
Wrinkle.
said that. So this invoice which you have missed out in that particular month because you couldn't book it, you can always claim it in the month of September, because that's the deadline. If it is pertaining to February or March, September would be your deadline, and you should claim it by that time. Understand? Provided the supplier, who's a quarterly dealer, he has already uploaded that and it is showing in your TUI, then you can claim. Not shown, then you can't claim.
Okay. Mr. Keshav, are you there? You can unmute yourself, Mr. Keshav. Mr. Kamlesh Dalal. Okay, I think you go ahead with the questions that we have, the written questions.
Hello, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Have the thing is that supposingly my client has missed his bill to raise in the month of October 2020, and since October comes after the quarter, so then his invoices of the supplier would be reflected in the month of January 2021. So if whatever is left out, I can claim it in September 2021.
I didn't get your question. October 20 is a bill which he has not raised, according to you. Hello?
Madam, your network is not clear. Whoever is asking the question, please go to a proper network and then ask a question, because your the voice is a bit is breaking. Can you repeat the question for Sujata madam? We none of us could hear properly.
Yeah, now is it clear? Hello.
Yeah.
Yes,
you're.
please.
Hello. Yeah,
Yes,
is
go
clear
ahead.
my voice? Sorry. Yeah, my client is a small dealer. He has forgot. Hello. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
speak.
we can hear you, ma'am, very clearly. Please speak.
Yeah, my
Very
client
clear.
is a small dealer. Yeah, my client is a small my client is a small dealer. He has forgotten to enter a purchase in the month of October 2020. He kept in his pocket and he didn't give the accountant and he has forgotten, which is a very common mistake in small dealers. And the supplier is also a quarterly person. He will file it in Jan 2021. So if I've forgotten this purchase, I have to claim it in September 21 or Jan 21.
See, what I understand from you is the supplier has forgotten to issue the bill. That's the first thing.
No, madam.
Hello?
Madam. Sujata madam.
Purchase,
Supplier-
enter the no, the supplier.
Ma'am, can I clarify your question? I have understood your question. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Madam, the
Thank you very much.
supplier has issued the invoice in October 2020. The recipient has forgotten to claim the input tax credit or to book the invoice in October as well. Now he has forgotten. Now the supplier who has issued the invoice correctly in October is a quarterly filer. So he uploads that invoice only in the month of January. That is the quarter 3 GSTR1. So when the recipient who had forgotten to book this invoice sees that invoice in January in 2A, and then he realizes that, oh, I have not booked this invoice, I have not claimed the credit also. She is asking whether I can claim that credit in January, or do I have to wait till September of 2021?
No, you can claim it in January also.
You can claim it.
Thank you very much.
September 20. Yeah.
Any month after October 2020, but the upper limit is September 2021.
I think
Madam,
Aditya,
lots
now
of
Okay.
take the return questions.
Thank
yeah,
you.
lots of questions have come,
Thank you
madam.
very much.
So just take
Yeah, you're
them
most
quickly.
welcome.
Yeah.
We'll take them quickly, madam. We'll not waste a lot of your time also. There is a very interesting question that there is a change in constitution of a concern from LLP to private limited company on 1st of October 2020. If we follow rule 36(4), then how would I be able to claim quarterly filers credit?
See, because of the change in the constitution, you'll have to change your registration, right?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, madam.
Huh. So the bill is raised on the new registration or it is raised on the old registration?
Because he's saying that quarterly filers, quarterly filers will only file because in September or whatever, any date, madam, which falls within the quarter, if we are following 36(4), we are not claiming credit till it is shown. Now, if the crux of the question is, if in between the quarter, if my constitution changes, then how do I claim the credit? Because as per 36(4), I have not claimed, and it will show up in the old registrations 2A after the end of the quarter. I think this is not a situation which you come across regularly.
But he can transfer it by GSTR 10, no? He can transfer the entire credit in GSTR 10.
That is only the ITC that is lying in the credit ledger as on the date of transfer, no?
Yeah, so he will not be able to claim something new.
Claimed only. My suggestion to you, claim all the credit as per books and then transfer it. You can explain it to the officer.
Yes, it's a change of constitution, change of transfer. Correct. I don't know the procedure of how it is done, but it definitely can be transferred.
Yes, madam. The credit that is lying in the credit ledger as on the date of change of constitution, there is a form ITC 10, if I'm not mistaken, Parth just mentioned. That has to be filed and the credit is transferred from one entity to another.
But tell me one thing, supposing during that quarter, middle of the quarter, my registration has changed, correct? My date of purchase is to that. So that was a different registration number. And the purchase which have happened after the change of my registration number, those are also different, correct?
Correct.
So according to me, there will be two registration numbers in that 2A. Although I am the same person, or I mean, with the different.
Madam, that invoice, which is dated prior to the change in constitution, will only appear in the GSTR 2A of the old entity.
Yes.
Correct. And now his question is that
to file the last return because I've cancelled my earlier number, and in that last return I can claim it after whenever it is shown.
But madam, if I no, it
is of no use. Understand.
It's of no use.
Sorry.
If it is claimed in the old entity, it is of no use because the business is being transferred to a new entity. In the sense that there is a change in constitution.
But then whatever credit I have, I can transfer it later. Na? Initially, I have to take it in the old entity.
That is why I said. That is why I said that claim all the ITC as per books of accounts. Don't wait for 36(4) and then transfer it to the new entity, and then do the reconciliation, which is explainable to the officer at least.
Fine.
Yeah. The next question is if in January 2020, supplier has not uploaded the invoice and thus the recipient has not claimed the ITC. Now till September 2020, supplier has not uploaded and the said invoice has not uploaded the said invoice. Can I claim in September 2020 as it is the last month where I can claim the ITC for 1920? So basically, the fundamental question is any. Yes, madam.
He has raised the invoice, but he has not uploaded it.
No, he's saying that I have no January 2020 ITC. I had not claimed because the invoice was not appearing in 2A. It is still not appearing in my 2A till September. Do I claim it in September now because it is the last month?
No, you can't. You can't. It is lost. That is why I said it is contrary to the provisions of 16(4). 16.4 is giving me a deadline, and if you put this matching concept in between, I'm not able to take the ITC, which is not
Correct.
matching.
Now, if you want to follow 16.4, you will have to claim that credit in the September return itself. But then you run the risk of the department sending you a notice that there is a mismatch between your 2A and your 3B, and then you will have to
Yeah,
fight it
I
out.
think that seems to be their idea, that you lose out on some of the ITC because of this.
So they're trying to tighten the news in such a manner that only the invoices that are uploaded and the tax which has been paid through 3B, only that ITC you end up taking through technology.
Yeah.
I will take up the last. There are multiple questions. We'll only take one more or two more maximum, madam.
There is one that I am
Yes.
also assigned. Then you take one, I'll take one more. That seems like an interesting.
No, you take the one that has been assigned to you. I don't know which has been.
I have one
I'll
query.
take the balance.
Have you been assigned the Amol Saha one? Yeah. So, madam, this question is that if we have not, now this is the thing, madam, that this is actually a practical question. It's not about whether the practice followed is right or not. This is actually something which has been seen, and a lot of accountants have actually told me this also. If we have not applied Rule 36(4) from October 19 up to January 20, then whether we have to reverse the excess amount of ITC. This is one part of the question. And if the unmatched ITC shown by the supplier after March 20, then again can we apply the same rule for matched ITC?
The first part of the question is from October till January, you have not followed 36(4). So there is an
Yes.
excess claim of ITC, correct? Now, is there any mechanism under the Act to show that, to send you a notice saying that this was not matched? I think there are notices for that. Notices can be saying that you have claimed excess ITC in this particular return. And till it is matching in 2A, that will be treated as an excess ITC. And to
So,
that
madam, what
extent,
he is saying is
now again
then
the
the
question
unmatched
of
ITC then again now appears in
utilization.
March. It starts appearing in March.
Sorry?
See, madam, here the question is that initially I purposely did not apply 36(4), and prima facie it does seem that if you don't apply 36(4), there will be certain ITC which you are supposed to not take at that in that month. That is fine. Now, when I realized all of this in February, now in the month of March, the invoices because of which 36(4) was actually applicable to me, and I had to reverse the invoices. I have actually not, although I have not reversed it. Now those invoices start appearing in March to me. So whether I have to apply 36(4) for that interim period and then again in March, that is a question. If I am not mistaken.
The question is that do I reverse the ITC for those months and reclaim it in March when I see it by applying 36? That is the question.
Yeah. And what will happen is, see, up to January, supposing you have claimed something in excess in violation of 36(4). So there is an excess ITC, which you will be able to reverse only in the month of February or March, as the case may be. Correct? You reverse it, and because it is appearing in 2A, again you claim it. Correct? So that is sort of setting off. It is sort of setting off reversal and claim of ITC.
Because, madam, in any case, 36(4) does say that if invoices appear later, you can directly claim them. I mean, so whatever the 10%, earlier it was 20%. If you're talking from October onwards, it was 20%, January onwards 10%. So initially, if there are certain invoices which you did not have to take, you would have to reverse it in the month of, till January, you would have to reverse it in the month of February, then again reclaim it in March. So that when you reclaim, Aditya, the point is, when you're reclaiming the invoices start appearing in March, at that point of time, for those particular invoices, you don't have to apply 36(4). You can directly claim.
Yes. No. I am going one step further. You don't need to reverse or reclaim any ITC. At best, there is only an interim interest liability that is there. because of an early
Okay.
claim of ITC in their opinion. That's all.
Whether interest is liable or not, that will be another discussion.
No,
Let's not
because
get.
you have claimed excess ITC, you have paid lesser tax.
See,
So that's all.
yeah, true. But Aditya, one will also have to see, because of that excess ITC which I claimed, whether that has been availed and utilized also. That aspect also will have to be seen. If it is not utilized and just availed, then we have a ground to say that no interest is leviable. Correct?
Madam, but the problem is, no, if you look at 73, all the offenses, no, if you look at 73, 74, 122, they are nowhere talking about wrongful utilization of ITC. They are always talking about availment of ITC. Wrong availment of ITC.
See,
That is a problem.
these were the similar provisions under the service tax law also, but they have been interpreted in such manner that unless and until you utilize that and make a less payment of tax, you should not be penalized with interest and all. These are the judgments on that. Now,
Yes.
considering the provisions in entirety in a holistic manner, then one can say that if I have not utilized it at all and there is no evasion of or other less payment of tax, then I should not be penalized with interest.
Yeah, even the amendment to 51, if you look at the intention of the legislature, amendment to section 51 and the proviso that is eventually included, so even that talks about the same thing. If the ITC is already available, to that extent, that amount is at the disposal of the government. That amount is not at the disposal of the department. So interest is only payable on net. So overall picture, like you said, if you look at a holistic approach to the entire act, you're right. But the pure wordings are availment as it stands.
The chairman,
Yes,
the
I agree
chairman
with
of the,
Of course,
the
that's a
chairman of
matter of
SNR
litigation.
committee has raised his hand.
Yeah, Mr. Janak Bhai is there.
Yeah, we must
So
take
you
his
guys
question.
can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Janak Bhai is there?
Yeah,
Yes,
Janak
Janak
Bhai.
Bhai, you have been unmuted, sir.
Yeah, yes. Can I? Am I audible?
Yes, Janak Bhai.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
you are. हाँ बोलो ना. Hello.
Janak bhai?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can
yes.
hear you speak.
Yeah. So this is the one lacuna that they have not given a chance to file the revised return after cancellation of the registration. See, this is a flaw in that is a defect in the GST law procedure. That any case, forget this change in constitution, even there is a death of the person, and then 36 because of that missed invoices, I could not claim the ITC. So that is the issue which we have to take before the commissioner on that point for the representation part. But the one that is they have not provided a mechanism for claim of the ITC which was not allowed because of the provision of the law, and later point time you are becoming eligible to claim it. So that is the one issue which we have to take in the representation part. And about the interest on the reversal, what we are discussing that there is a provision for the grant of the refund of the interest when the invoices are uploaded by the supplier. So if the interest is we have paid, then that interest would be refunded to us when the supplier upload the invoice and we are eligible to claim the ITC.
Okay, if you go by the section 42 and 43, correct, na?
Yeah, 43.9. Anyway, I mean, carry on the discussion. Sorry.
Yeah, I think
Because
we'll come to an end.
Yes, I was since beginning. I was there in that. I was listening you very.
Okay.
Switch on your webcam.
Thanks a lot.
You're already a panelist. You can switch on your webcam.
Aja, what is happening? Okay. I don't know how to do all this thing.
No, I already sent you a request. Just click yes. Just click yes on that. Yeah.
Where?
I have sent you a request. Yeah. It's fine.
Madam, I have one query.
Okay.
There is some invoice which is not appearing as on say 20th of October or say 12th of October of previous years, 1920. But say, but but in that plus 10% calculation, that missing invoice amount is getting managed. So then whether am I eligible for that ITC or I am not eligible for that ITC?
You are eligible.
Okay.
Madam, but there is just a word of caution in the sense that this is something I want your view on this. Is that you are right, Raj? The point is that the 10%, if there are certain amounts which are not certain invoices which are not there and they are getting covered by the 10% extra credit that you can take.
Yes.
Now that just
yes,
makes you
position can be there.
yes, madam. But the point is that does that determine my eligibility to ITC? That is all. I can claim ITC,
No, see.
but whether I am eligible or not, I will still have to go as per section 16. No, you will eventually have to pay the.
Very right.
Yes.
Yes, very right. See, that problem will come in the assessment. Now, Rule 36(4) specifically allows you to take that provisional ITC. I would have been if 36(4) had not been there, I would have taken the entire ITC, correct? And then in the assessment or later on, he would have told me that you are not eligible for this because the supplier has not paid the tax, correct? And that time it would have been deleted or it would have been reduced to my ITC claim. But now, because of 36(4), I am just able to take the 10% more what is eligible to me as per the matching process prescribed. And that is a provisional ITC which I am getting at present. You can just say that you are not eligible to it while filing some return. You should be able to get it.
On similar lines, there is one more. Say some invoices of October were not reflected in 2A. I was not comfortable
Which
with
October?
the
19 ke 20?
19. Sorry. So I was not comfortable with the 36(4) calculation. So what I did, whatever invoices were available in my 2A, I claimed ITC. I did not opt for plus 20% option. I claimed whatever was available. Now later on, after 2-3 months, I understood the calculation. So now, say for the month of January, can I say that October plus 20 was left? So I will claim in January 20 now of October plus 20%, which was left.
Yeah.
Can they say
ideally
that?
You can. Yeah.
In totality, it is getting covered. That amount is getting covered in that plus 10%, plus 20%. In totality, if we see, for say a period of 6 months.
See, this is a reverse problem we are now considering. Earlier we said that we had excess ITC. Here you're taken it less, although 36(4) allows you something more than that, what is matched. Correct? I think you can take that. But of course, if each return is scrutinized separately, and then you are asked to explain how you have taken this ITC, then you will have to explain everything. That's the only. But you are eligible according to me.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
Shall we conclude, Aditya?
Yes. Because lots of questions, but I think lots of them have been answered by madam, and we have we had the time of 6:30. We have continued till 7 o'clock. So, with everybody's permission, I will offer.
Aditya, before you offer a vote of thanks, I just want to make one announcement that on 6th and 7th of October, we have organized a workshop on practical filing of annual return and audit report. So messages will be I will be shooting it today in the night. So the payment links and everything will be there in the message. So just an announcement, a need of an hour topic. All those who are really interested may please join. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. With your permission, I would like to offer a vote of thanks on behalf of all of us, the office bearers, the committee members, as well as the participants, to our dear Sujata Rangnekar madam. Madam, thank you very much firstly for stepping in for your association, for our association, when we were in the need because of an unfortunate cancellation. So thank you so much. Despite the very short amount of time that was given to you, only 1 or 2 days, uh, you have studied the topic and you have deliberated on the subject marvelously. I'm sure all of us can say that we have been enlightened and enriched with today's session. Lots and lots of queries. Many of them, I'm sorry, I wish to apologize to the participants whose queries we could not take up because there were many queries. But thank you very much, madam, that you have answered all the queries that we have put forth very patiently, and the discussion that you had with all of us also. I think it has enriched everyone a lot. I wish to thank the president, the office bearers, our chairman Janak Bhai, my co-convener, as well as Sejal madam for the technical support. She is always there. Thank you, Sujata madam. Thank you very much. We hope that you will continue to guide us through the study circle meetings and other events of the association.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, madam. We'll conclude the session now.
Yes, thank
Just
you.
off the record, in cricket we say that form is temporary and class is permanent. So that is what we observe today, that the manner in which you have explained in a very short time, you had only 2 days time, but we say that class is permanent. The class, you are class apart, madam.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello,